1. Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambremont Webre, and we had a program, an initial program a short while ago, a very compelling and case of a mother, Anna, from Sweden, and her son that showed a tremendous injustice in Sweden being carried out by the CPS, the Child Protective Services, that Ole Dammegard and his colleague Conny, a police inspector, were part of. And we're very privileged today to have Anna joining us again with her distinguished attorney, Jan. Welcome, Anna and Jan.
Hi, Alfred.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And I know that this case, the more that I've read about it as an attorney and as a judge, a war crimes judge, in my mind, this qualifies as a war crime. That is my perspective. That is, I believe that it qualifies as a war crime and as a systemic crime against humanity because of certain factors that we raised in our last program as to systemic abuses in child protective services that seem to be ongoing in Scandinavia, especially in your neighbor, Norway. And so, Jan, I want to ask you, as Anna's attorney, what is the current posture of this legal case?
Well, Anna has received a verdict in the criminal case where she has been sentenced for abduction of the child and for libel. The verdict has been appealed, and we don't know when the court will deal with it. Now, I was not her lawyer in that case. I'm actually not my specialty is not as a lawyer, but I'm a political scientist. But I also work as a legal counsel. So I help Anna with her custody case, and that will come up in August. Now, I have explained in my paper the very intriguing process. The decision-making in the courts is extremely complicated and almost impossible for a foreigner to understand. But the main thing is that you can present any kind of evidence in a court, and the court can, in some cases, completely disregard that evidence just for formal reasons. In the criminal case, there was overwhelming evidence showing that the child had been subject to very serious abuse, and for formal reason, the court had completely disregarded those facts.
Right. So, just to summarize the facts of the case for people who may be tuning in for the first time, what occurred here in human terms? Could you just bring us up to date as to what occurred factually, kind of the history of what occurred here?
You could start. Well, what happened in 2016?
Oh, in 2016, well, it was that my boy told me that he didn't want to go to his father anymore, and because he told me about sexual abuse, what his daddy was doing to him, and with him, and he also had injury on his genitals, and so it was very shocking to me what he told me and what I saw, the damage on his body. So that's when I did a complaint to the child fair system. And they didn't really listen to my complaint. They took the father's side. Like, they told me to, because when I called them, I did it with an unknown number. I was a little bit terrified to go that way, but everybody told me, you have to do this. And even the social service and the police will tell me, you have to report this. This is very important. So I did that. I did what I was supposed to do. I didn't know what to do with all these horrible things that he was telling me. And so they invite me to come and do the complaint, but when I do it, it starts to get used against me. So I wouldn't, from what I know today, I would never tell anyone to go there, don't go that road, because it gets much worse. Because today my son is not even with me, like he's with the father all the time. So this is a nightmare for my son and for me, because I'm so tired of that. Because they have like kidnapped my son through on a legal way, but they are not following the laws. They're abusing the law to kidnap your child away from you. And for me, this is an absolute shock, because I could never imagine that the system was so, that they would do something like that. I thought they cared about the children. I thought Sweden, especially Sweden, was a country that really cared about human rights and especially children's rights and so on. So for me to go through this thing was shocking. They will lie in the reports, and they will affect other authority, like the kindergarten, you say, where he was in school. All of a sudden, the teachers will change and be different towards you. And before that, I didn't have any problem with anyone. We did not have any problem. And now his teachers becomes like strangers, and they start to help the social service. us, and it was they tried to make you not believing in your own reality. You know what I mean?
Gaslighting.
It was gaslighting, yes. I could see my little boy, what he was telling me, it was the same stories. Every time I had to go to the father, he would come with the injury and he would tell me what the father was doing. And he was very broken down, and he showed even his self-esteem, his personality change. He became very needy and needed me all the time, and he get withdrawn. Before he was happy and outgoing and had self-confidence, but now he was more introvert and shy and didn't. It was so many, like he went backward instead of forward, and he stopped eating, and he showed a lot of fear, like by peeing and pooping in his pants before visiting, like he had so much anxiety. And it was difficult for me to make my voice heard, because they ignored me. That woman, her name is actually, she was so aggressive towards me, and she wouldn't listen to what I was saying. And it kept continue, and sometimes I was like asking myself if I was doing something wrong, you know, because like everybody will turn against me. But I knew I wasn't, because I was recording everything. So I went back and I was listening, and I knew what I had said. And then when I see her writing in the journal, it was crazy. It was totally crazy. She tried to make me not believable, and like I was something that I made up. And
I could add something.
yes.
I had run, by coincidence, I had run into that social worker before. So he had done exactly the same thing before, had covered up the abuse of two boys in cooperation with the police, then in the city of Uppsala. They went, in that case, they went after the father who had reported this abuse and had him sentenced and covered up that abuse. In this case, she did exactly the same. And in both cases, she had a special position. She was the CPS representative to the police investigation in the case, and therefore she could use her position to influence the police. We can see it in a paper written by the police in Anna's case, 2 weeks before the first interrogation of her boy, where she actually did her best to demoralize the police, saying that actually there seems to be something wrong with Anna. You can see it in the interrogation. It's a pattern that recurs, that as soon as the boy is about to tell something substantial, they stop the interrogation. Meanwhile, that is also very strange. I mean, in Sweden, the law is very strict. The police are supposed to do investigations, police investigations. But in reality, the CPS are part of these investigations. And I would say that they are the driving force behind the investigation, like the engine of the train, with the police coming after, like train cars. In this case, when she was working together with the police, she actually recommended the father to sue Anna for custody, and he did so. His case was supported by a study made by her, which was a 37-page plea for his case. It was made available 1 day before the first hearing, and the result was the boy was moved from his mother to his father. That so-called study, even by Swedish standards, where the CPS studies are extremely low quality, this study is a horror. It's really a 37-long example of perjury, of just making a description of Anna as a completely irresponsible person. She requisitioned her medical journals, and obviously she showed those journals to the father long before the study was completed, and that is definitely a breach of law. And she included large sections from her medical records in that study, completely unnecessarily, but in such a way that she excluded, for example, the main cause why Anna had to go to the doctor, that is, that she had a car accident. So she removed the car accident and then just described the effects, making the impression that there was something wrong with Anna's head. A very, very clever way to steer the judge's attention towards Anna's so-called shortcomings.
Right, right. I just want to excuse me. I'm just looking here. Excuse me. I'm just looking here at a report by a psychotherapist that interviewed your son, and that has found, and this was done about a year ago, and in June of 2018, and the psychotherapist confirms in detail systematic acts of sexual abuse that the father commits on the son, pedocriminal abuse. And this is evidentiary in nature. So looking at what you have just stated, Jan, from the record, and looking at this report, it seems to me clear that everything that has been stated is that there's prima facie evidence that the Child Protective Service itself is a pedocriminal organization. Could you comment on that characterization?
Can you?
I think we have different opinions here.
Yeah, you can say your opinion.
In my opinion, they are just terribly a prime example of bureaucracy gone wrong, where the main thing is to confirm anything that the colleagues have done. So after this first study, they made another 4 studies, just confirming the results of the first study, not using their own head. They don't care. They don't care about the child itself. It's all about their own prestige.
Yeah, but after I mean, in the beginning, because I thought maybe she was manipulated by the father because he's a very manipulative person. I thought that was the deal, why she took his side. But actually now, a couple of years later, I think differently. I mean, they actually do things on purpose, like they purposely take side for the bad parents and take the child to the father now, for example. And it brings a lot of thoughts, actually, that it's in the system. That's what I believe. It's in the system, and I had many questions. Why are they doing this? You know, and for many years I was asking this, but now I feel like there must be that they are using the social service, the system. Maybe it is controlled by pedophiles, because this is happening all the time, especially with the sexual abuse, like when a mother complains to the system that the child is telling about the sexual abuse, it is the same mold. How do you say? It's just different names. But the mothers are labeled, they have mental illness. And they have no chance. They lose the custody, they lose the children, they lose their visitation rights. It's the same thing. And nothing is wrong with the mothers. The only thing they're doing is telling where their children are telling them. So in the beginning, I thought maybe they were manipulated and they didn't know better, because this is what people say, they don't know better. But I think they do know. I think they're vicious, like they are, it's difficult to explain them, but I think it's a higher power, or whatever you say, that control them and lead them, because them itself are not so powerful. But I feel like they choose some people in the system and use them for these cases. I don't think everyone who are working at those places are bad, but they have some special people who they can connect to certain
Cases.
This is how I feel, and they support the pedophiles somehow. They do.
In my opinion, I've seen a number of cases where the police have been involved, and there have been special interrogators interrogating the children. What I see is, first of all, that the CPS play too much of a police role, which they have no competence for that, and the police tend to listen to them. I've seen a number of interrogations which are absolutely which have been interpreted in the wrong way. They don't understand what the child says. So what they tend to do, according to what I have seen, is that they tend to over dramatize cases where nothing has happened, tend to cover up cases where things actually have happened. And in the wider perspective, I don't know how many studies I've seen where the CPS trying its best, first of all, in custody cases, to fool the court into giving the child to the worst parent. And it's the same in this case, that you have a custody case is opened as a result of the criminal investigation, where this CPS work has a key function. In my opinion, this has to do with the CPS workers. They are often very unfamiliar with psychological problems, and are very likely to listen to the drama queen, someone who is so good at shedding crocodile tears that the simple truth just fades away in comparison. I would say that Anna's case is a prime example. She just tells the truth. The truth is not enough here for the CPS.
Now, when you say that in your observation, the CPS is trying to convince the court to give custody of the child to, quote, the worst parent. Okay. When you say the worst parent, is your definition of the worst parent the pedocriminal parent?
Well,
is that the definition here? Is that what we're talking about here?
We don't have to, Peter. There are other cases too where you can see that there is one parent who is definitely psychologically more unstable than the other. There could be a parent who has drug problems, alcohol problems, and people with lots of problems become professional clients of the social services, which in Sweden, CPS is part of the social services. So they have adjusted to the role expected from a client of the social services. They know the rules of the game. They know how to cry. They know how to be obedient to the authorities. Whereas the parent who might be well educated, well established, and who has no drug problems actually loses because he or she doesn't really want to be dependent on the CPS. And the CPS workers definitely don't like people who are independent.
Right. Yeah, Anna, did you want to say something, or?
I don't know. I just see them as very. I see the whole system is very sadistic. It's a very sadistic way of mistreating people. They want to break you down totally. The good parents, they break you down. I see child abuse actually in that in that system. That's what I see. Child abuse.
Now, tell me, because you're going to be starting a custody case, as I understand it, in August, and there is this report from a psychotherapist, which is, I know that we can't show it unfortunately, because it is privileged, and we wouldn't be able to put it online. But surely you can introduce it in the legal custody case, can't you?
Well, actually, what we are going into now in August.
Yeah.
Of August, is that the father wants to take my only rights, legal rights I have left, and that is my visitation right. This is what I have left. See, he took my, I lost the custody in May 2018, but at that time I didn't have Jan with me. It was other lawyers. It was another lawyer. So I lost the custody because first I lost my son to the father's home. I mean, after 6 years, my son was living with me for 6 years. But then when the social service came into our lives because of my complaint, for my son was telling me those things about the sexual abuse. And this woman was, he did this horrible investigation, and I lost my son to the father while we are waiting for the custody big hearing, and I lost it there too. And now he wants to take away my visitation rights that I have every second weekend. And I don't know, for these people who are listening now, that I was forced to hide, to take my son to protect him, because the TPS didn't protect him, and he would come to me every time with bruises, and he would tell me how his father is hitting him and abusing him sexually, and that was like every day, and I didn't know what to do. It was heartbreaking for me to see my son so bruised and so broken down, and not be able to help him. It was very frustrating, very frustrating. And these women who are working there, like they were angry at me because there was this stepmother to the father, to my son's father, who did complain, and they were angry at me and said those complaints need to stop towards the father. They told me like this need to stop, and I said, well, nobody likes to complain, but my son is coming back to me in a very bad shape, and this is how he looked. So I showed them pictures of my son, like bruises on his back, on his eyes, on his arm, on his buttocks, everywhere he has bruises. And I showed the pictures of his genitals that they were bruised. I said, this is how my son comes back to me. This worries me, and what he's telling me worries me. That's why those complaints are coming. Why are you not listening to the complaints? Because it was complaints from the doctors who has been like complaining to the social service. They feel worried about what my son told them and what they see. So I said, they got so upset with me because that I've been taking in documents the pictures. So they reported me to the police. Instead of taking action and protect my son, they will reject that I took a picture of his genitals. That I will be the one who, insulting him, that I was insulting my son. So you see, it's not normal. That's not how a normal person will react. And by reporting me to the police, I think now I know it was a way for them to scare me and shut me down. So be quiet now. But I could not be quiet because my son will keep coming to me with who's hurting. How could I be quiet? So, and I will ask for help, and even doctors and the psychotherapist, they will get together. And for now, it was like 4 professionals who will make a report to the social service. They will keep ignored. They even got more aggressive, actually. And they affected that prosecutor. She didn't investigate the crime. She shut everything down because the social service is controlling her. And she didn't hear with the doctors, this prosecutor. She didn't hear with anyone, any witnesses at all, because the social service said it's about an what is it? Custody?
Oh.
A bad custody?
Yes.
And
this is how tricky they were.
Yeah.
First, there was a criminal case.
Mm-hmm.
Then, the first social worker recommends the father to open a custody case.
Exactly.
Then they blame the custody case for anything the mother reports. They're turning the whole case upside down.
Exactly. So, because this was not about custody, this was about a boy who needs help. They don't want to protect him. So then they tell the prosecutor that not inleda.
To disregard the complaint.
Exactly. And then a week later, they will call my little boy with his father, and while the father is sitting next to him, they will ask him if his father is hitting him or his siblings are hitting him, or if he molested him sexually.
Yeah.
What would you expect from a little 7-year-old to do?
Could I add some things out? They have worked in a very clever way. I told you about this first social worker. You see, she interviewed the boy at his kindergarten, and that story is repeated in all the reports of the CPS, and it's even referred to in the court's rulings as well. The story is that she maintained that the boy has told her that actually his stories are false and that he only tells stories about his father's abuse because his mother tells him so. Now, if we look at the whole account of that meeting, you realize that there is another account. It is the boy's account. As soon as he came home, he told his mother about the meeting, and that account is recorded. His account and the social worker's account completely coincide. The 6-year-old accurately describes chronologically what has happened in the same way as the social worker does, except for one little part. That is, the interview with him. He says that he actually told the social worker the truth, that it was his father who abused him. Now we have two versions. Whom are we to believe, the boy or the social worker? Now we go back to the earlier case. There I have absolute proof that she was doing a study of the abuse of two boys. Then a friend at the police calls her and asks her to stop that investigation. She does so the next day. The official reason given is there was something wrong with the original report. There we have an absolute lie, and that tells me that it's very, very likely that she told a lie in this case too.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, the case is moved to from Uppsala to Östermalm in Stockholm. CPS workers there repeat and continue the version presented by the first social worker. So we have a number of reports from doctors and father's stepmother, very specifically indicating that there has been serious abuse of the boy. Well, we have doctors, we have a stepmother. Wouldn't the CPS listen? No, they don't want to listen. You see, in Sweden, one CPS worker obviously can overrule half a dozen of doctors. So how did they do it? They were very, very clever. The final hearing in the custody case was getting closer. So they decided to invite the boy together with his father for an interrogation before the final hearing. But they invited the mother with the boy after the final hearing. And look at what they did. After the first interview, where the boy was with his father and did not dare say anything that was against his father's will, they actually sent a report from that meeting to the court saying that so far we have found no evidence that corroborates any allegations of abuse of the boy. I mean, this is really manipulation of the court case.
Right. Now, I'd like to bring in perhaps an extraneous factor and perhaps not. If you could clarify the role of Prosecutor Daniel Sunesson, as I understand it, he has a celebrity case in the sense that he is the prosecutor of a rap singer, ASAP Rocky, who is, as you know, Rocky has in his corner the President of the United States and a whole coterie of Hollywood fellow performers. What role has Daniel Sunesson played in the ASAP Rocky case, and what role has Daniel Sunesson played in Anna and your son's case, just to see the odds that Anna and her son are up against? It seems to me that Daniel Sunesson is a very sinister person, because at least on this side of the pond, it appears as though this this rapper was kind of finding, minding his own business and was set upon. But we'll see what the hearing says.
I haven't read all the material in the ASAP Rocky case, but I know a few things. First, there was another prosecutor who was in charge of this case, but I think the reason why he was replaced with Mr. Sunesson was that the first prosecutor was an obvious homosexual, and we know that ASAP Rocky definitely doesn't like homosexuals. So in order to remove that kind of strain, they appointed Mr. Sunesson. In my opinion, Mr. Sunesson is the kind of prosecutor who is trusted and chosen for difficult cases. But the legal system has its own logic. I can quote one of our experts on this kind of cases, who says that, well, once you are in custody, you are likely to be sentenced. So the case, in his opinion, kind of is decided by the ASAP Rockies having been in custody. And in Anna's case, I can't say so much about the investigation in ASAP Rocky's case, but in Anna's case, it's a horror story. You can see, I think I'll take it from the beginning. The Swedish legal system, I mean, you have the police, you have the prosecutors, and you have the judges. They have an increasing workload. A judge doesn't have the time to go home and think about a case. His task now is to produce as many pages as possible for as many verdicts as possible. The prosecutors, that's another story, but they also have a quite heavy workload, whereas the police, yes, they are overworked, and there seem to be some leadership problems. Often the obedient people become the bosses. All those people in the legal system have a lot to do, and thinking takes a lot of time. Well, if you're short of time to think, you ask for an expert. And in any case that has to do with children, the CPS are the think tank of the whole of the legal system. Unfortunately, they are not very well educated. They have a very basic academic education, and they definitely have not learned to think independently. And there's something special in their education. They are not trained to look for a truth. They rather look for different stories. And if you have one parent telling outright lies and one parent telling the truth, their initial assumption is that, well, there's one story and there's another story, and let's see what we can do about it. They're not asking themselves which parent is lying. And in this case, then, the CPS already has manipulated Anna's case in a terrible way. The police have been connected to the case for 3 years. the police have been informed and inspired by CPS, so they don't think independently. They follow the story established by the CPS. And I have some examples of real horrors, like the police making an interrogation, not for legal reasons, but as a private service to one of their collaborators in the CPS. In this case, you also have the Swedish Secret Service getting involved with the case and spreading disinformation about Anna, spreading the word that she is mentally unstable and that the boy needs to be reprogrammed. Who has invited the Secret Service here? It's not possible to understand. They obviously have done their share in influencing the case. So I have complained to Mr. Sunesson long ago that basically he's the figurehead here because he has formal responsibility for this investigation. Actually, the whole investigation is run by the CPS, who have convinced the police of their version of the story. Then Mr. Sunesson makes things even worse by siding with one side of the story. There are two sides here. Anna has filed a complaint against the father of child abuse. Then, after she has gone away with her son, the father accuses her of abducting the child. The prosecutor, Mr. Sunesson, seems absolutely indifferent to any kind of abuse committed against the boy. He has reportedly, in an outright manner, said, well, whatever there was, it has stopped now after the mother has disappeared. So the main crime now is the abduction of the child. He's absolutely uninterested in the cause of this so-called crime, that is the abduction. It gets even worse because there are several incidents. I have written about them in the two articles I sent you. He has, I think this really is a crime, or at least he should be heavily reprimanded for it. 3 times he has told Anna that she should replace me as her legal counsel. He has absolutely no right to do that. One of the interrogating police women also did that, and another person who was in charge of calling Anna to make her give up had been given that task from the Swedish Secret Service, also tried to convince her of replacing me, and also in a very unpleasant manner told me that it was about time that I left the case. And yet another person involved with the case has told her the same, that he won't do a thing for her unless he replaces me and my colleague.
Nobody cares about my son.
So there's heavy pressure on her. Second, we have a number of instances where the police have made transcripts of recordings, and for some odd reasons, they have deemed key words inaudible. In every case, these key words are words which imply that something bad has happened to the boy. And instead, by rewriting the transcripts, they put the blame on Anna. There are more details in my little article, but this is a horror case. And I can tell you that already 1 year before I met Anna, I made a report to the Prosecutor General concerning this first PPS worker for her involvement in the previous case. After that, I made reports to the parliamentary ombudsman, to the Prosecutor General, and to the Chancellor of Justice, all about manipulation of this investigation. But now we have more cases, we have more instances, and we will file new reports. Heaven knows where they will lead, but I have publicized my findings. So that's where we are now.
Yeah.
Sorry, you asked about Mr. Sunason. My conclusion is that man can't be trusted. That if he is in charge of the Aesop Rocky case, good heavens, then you never know what the result will be.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to give you my impression and see, what you think. But my impression, having listened to the evidence so far and having read what I've read so far, is that this system in the CPS, in the police, in the various prosecutors, that they've reached an institutional decision to punish Anna and women like Anna for speaking up and taking action to protect children against pedocriminal acts by their partners. This is to protect pedocriminals, and they are punishing Anna as a mother who's trying to protect her child against a pedocriminal father, because they are pedocriminal institutions. That is my clear conclusion. I'm sorry.
Could I make
over to you?
Could I tell you my version of this? You have to understand Sweden. The Swedish legal system is very different from the American legal system. We have there is a principle in the Swedish legal system, which is the principle of immovability. That is, that a court ruling it should be very, very difficult to change it. So once a court or any authority has made a decision, come up with a solution, it seems like the whole legal system rallies up behind that decision. And I see the tendency in cases, not just pedophilia cases, but in any cases which are complex, where there is a matter of child abuse of any kind. Once the system has decided either that there is child abuse or that there is not child abuse, the system doesn't want to change.
Yeah, but who is who is controlling the system?
Nobody.
That is more my question. Who is controlling this terrible? Who comes up with something like that?
Laziness.
I don't know. There is something bigger than that, I think, because it feels like the pedophile crime control. It's not only here in Sweden, it's all over the world. And this is what Trump is working with in America, has been doing that ever since he became a president. So this is, I feel, a worldwide kind of a problem. And this social, I think they are in the lead for their work. Like, you think you will get help, but
take your children away from you. They'll crush you. I mean, I'm worried to death about my son. I'm holding myself together so I don't fall, but I know how he suffers every day, and they don't care. They sacrifice him. They don't care about him, and they instruct the school to do the same. They will instruct the nurse in school. I mean, everyone. It's something so wrong, like normal people will do such a thing. They're afraid. So I don't know. I feel like pedophile is ruling rules somehow. It's scary. It's really scary.
Yep.
Scary.
No,
So the system is scary anyway.
Yeah. Now we're coming to the end of the hour. There are just a few minutes left, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. One is there something that you wanted to mention or raise today that you haven't had a chance to mention yet?
Well, we are starting a project at GoFundMe, because Anna is really, I would say, persecuted by the Swedish legal system. And we're just started a project called Help Swedish Pedophile Victim, in order to raise funds for her for her defense and for her livelihood. She is in a really bad position right now. I would say her case is becoming a prominent case, a kind of a lead case for many other Swedes. So many people have rallied behind her and are trying to help her. We are really short of funds.
Yeah, good. So please send me the link to that, and we will put it prominently in the article and in the video description that accompanies this panel, so that people can really begin to participate. And that was really my second question. And my second question is, I mean, we have the case of ASAP Rocky. Well, we have the case of Anna. I mean, ASAP Rocky is a wealthy entertainer. Anna is, and her son, by extension, are really targeted here for having come forward to defend the most integrative of fundamental rights. And I do hope that you begin to look at taking this case to the European Court of Human Rights, and begin to reach out to other venues. But my second question was, how can people participate? And so I think that the GoFundMe, yes, we will put that, and that's a good way for people to stay in touch and to offer support. And I hope that you'll be able to come back and from time to time keep us informed of this case, because I think my point of view is that there's some powerful forces. I mean, I agree with the immobility. That's that old Latin thing, stare decisis. Okay, it's a different way of expressing that as a legal principle, but I think more fundamentally, this is an institution which treats mothers and their children diabolically, and you have the CPS, you have the state prosecutor, a very visible one, who has put the weight of the office and who's dealing with the president of the United States now, and look at the weight that Anna has to deal with, and you have the courts. You know, I mean, is there no shame? No, there is no shame, because there is the evidence of the psychotherapist and his report of June 2018, which is just dismissed.
Yes.
So, you know, and I myself am a judge, so I don't understand how judges can look at this and in any way condone the actions of institutions that have taken these decisions. There is no way. This is an international human rights outrage, and I commend you to go to the European Court of Justice, go to the United Nations, go to, you know, don't stop. We have a principle here in North American jurisprudence, is called appeal. And, you know, if you have to get out of Scandinavia, which seems to be, you know, a criminal cesspool, criminal judicial and police cesspool, will get out of Scandinavia.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well,
Really?
I need to save my boy, you know, I need to save him.
Yeah,
I'm worried
exactly.
every day. I'm worried every day.
Exactly. I'm sorry. I come from a tradition. I've taught law at two universities. I've been a war crimes judge. I was a cooperating attorney with the New York Civil Liberties Union for many years. We don't stand still. We always bust through criminal courts, criminally infiltrated courts, criminally infiltrated agencies. What can I do? I'm sorry. I just got it. Thank you both. I know Anna, for, you know, the weight that you're carrying. I know, Jan, you have a tremendous weight there, because the prosecutor is trying to get you separated from the case. Godspeed to you both in your cases in August. You're always welcome back here, and please send me the link to the GoFundMe, and you know, our viewers and our listeners, I'm sure, that send you all of the support that they can. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alfred. Thank you.
Absolutely. Until we speak again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.